Greetings, brothers. A few people asked me to jump into the RTT that I was just at. Obviously, I took a super heavy tank, the Astraeus there. That was a bit of fun. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about my thoughts, and maybe also let's talk about what I'm going to have to do for the GT I'm going to in about 8 weeks' time. So thank you so much for being here, and if you are new to the channel, then I am John, the Blood Angels Commander, and every week I do various videos on how to get the most out of your Blood Angels, how to win more games, and if you'd like to see more of that, then please consider subscribing. Okay, let's get into it. So I recently took this super heavy tank to GT. I went 1 win and 2 losses, but I did do very well on battle points, 233 battle points. And this was a Warhammer RTT just in September 2022. And one of the reasons that I took the tank was honestly struggling to build a sort of like meta Blood Angels list that will win against like all chapters or all factions. You know, when you go to a tournament, you want a list that can compete against everything. I was really struggling to build that list. And as such, I thought, I'm going to take an Astraeus. I'm going to play a super heavy tank in an event. I've never done it before. Will I have fun? And how will I get on? Can I win the event with super heavy tank? Obviously not, but my battle points were quite high. So let's look at where I finished in the event, and it was all the way down in 7th, which wasn't very good considering there was only about 14 people. But I did finish 2nd in terms of battle points. So if I'd won my last game, I would have finished 2nd. Yeah, this was a much worse win-loss ratio than I've had at any events actually in like the last 2 years. But even one of the things that I've been doing in those other events is occasionally, like, I would do great, I would go 4-0, I would get to the top table, and then I would capitulate and have a game where I scored no points. Or, like, when I say no points, I mean like 20 or 30 points. In a couple of events last year that actually, like, stopped me from finishing 2nd in the event just because my final game performance was so terrible. So at least this time round, I scored very well in my losses. And it's important to note in game 3 where I scored 57, I could have easily had 10 more points there because we ran out of time and we couldn't play the last 2 turns. And I also felt like my secondaries in the 3rd game were crap picks. I don't play Harlequins barely ever. I've had 2 games against them this entire edition. I've actually had 2 games against them since I came back to the hobby about 5 years ago. So, I mean, sometimes that will happen. So it's good to get another game against the Harlequins and remember kind of what they're like. I did beat them last time round, but I had Null Zone. And Null Zone is a weird power in that, like, sometimes you just feel like you don't need it at all, but then when you need it, you really do need it. And I guess Null Zone is a huge counter into Harlequins, right? Because most of their saves are crap, they reply on those 4-up and Vuns. Anyway, I also, twice in early turns, double wonned my las cannon shots, or my twin las cannon from my Astraeus. And I often say 40k isn't a dice game, but like double las cannon, early turns, that was both my losses, both times into critical targets, double ones. It is what it is, right? It happens. It's maybe a little bit ironic that like the super heavy tank could have gone on and I could have finished 2nd place. I could have done even better if we hadn't double won those las cannon shots. Bear in mind I hit on 2s because I have a Tech Marine buffing them. But oh well, 40k, I like to say it's not a dice game, I think it's based on skill. Maybe that's not so true when you have a super heavy, but I do still think it's based on skill, even if you have a super heavy. You have to have your target priority and stuff, right? So, okay, this is where I finished. And it was a fun enough event, so let's have a quick look at my list. I ran a score of servitors because they're essentially free in terms of force organization because I have my Tech Marine who is going to be the master of the forge, so he's going to be repairing 3 per turn. I actually have loads of elite slots because a super heavy tank kind of means that I don't have enough points to fill up my elite slots. My captain on the bike, I would say, was probably my MVP of the event. He had Soul Warden, he had Rites of War and Armor Indomitus. In 2 of the games, he was huge. Rites of War with Sangre Guard and the captain is kind of huge. You end up having like 8 models on an objective. They're all obsec. It's very strong, and you're usually killing things or heroically intervening with Sangre Guard. It's kind of brilliant. Mephiston was Quickening, Unleash Rage, and Wings, and Mephiston did well in the event. I liked, in one of the games I picked Blade of Sanguinius and chose Mephiston because you can get that 19-inch move, and I needed that in the final turn to make the kill because he basically put the character that I picked in a transport and tried to run away from me. So I mean, that's a valid tactic, I guess, to deny your opponent 15 points. But Mephiston's long range 19-inch move prevented that happening. Alright, for troops we got Assault Intercessors and Cursors. For elites it was 2 Death Company, one with 4 Thunderhammers and a guy with a chainsword, and the other Death Company was nice and cheap, 105 points with a chainsword. I really like this squad at 105 points now. I think if you are fighting, even to a certain degree, Armour of Contempt units, if you have a way of getting them in Assault Doctrine, and you have a way of, you know, it's 30 attacks. I mean, you can get Exploding Sixes from Mephiston, you can get Chapter Master rerolls. I think it's a very good weight of attacks. I like the Death Company with the chainswords, especially in 105 points. I'm thinking in the future I might consider running 3 Death Companies. And one of the ones that I've been thinking a lot about is this Power Sword Infernal Pistol Death Company that we've been seeing crop up. Power Sword Death Company seem like they're very viable and very cheap as well, so something to consider. I ran 2 squads of Sanguinary Guard, focus on swords, a few Infernal Pistols in both. I always think that if you just have 1 Infernal Pistol, you can sometimes like whiff, so I prefer the squad with obviously having 2. Maybe if I didn't have the Astraeus, I might even put in more. The Astraeus had the Iron Tail Heavy Stubber, the twin las cannon, and 2 Plasma Eradicators, had a twin Macro Accelerator cannon, and it also had a Stormbolter. For why it really needs a Stormbolter on top of all that is fine, but that's what my Astraeus was armed with, and that let me start the game on 3 CP. Basically the only 3 I've spent are on my captain, and is at 2,000 points. So, I mean, if you're wanting to play a super heavy tank, because you could easily swap this Astraeus out for a Falchion or a Fellblade, or maybe even like a Spartan, the new one from Horus Heresy, this list would stand you in good stead. The one thing to say is, like, I really think you do need the Servitors, because what inevitably happens with a list like this is you only have 12 units, and at some point you're going to lose some units, you're going to need to push off an objective. And when you do that, you need something that can maybe stick around and hold that objective. In a couple of games, I used my Servitors, and that's, I mean, maybe even if I had another squad of Servitors, I maybe even should have had 2 squads. Drop 1 Sanguinary Guard, make that happen. You're always gonna run into a few problems when you have a super heavy tank in terms of, like, you're going to have to give up some things in your list, especially if you have the Tech Marine there as well. You know, you've spent 700 points on fire support, so other areas are going to get pinched, and normally we would never see a Blood Angels list without 6 elites if it's a battalion, and I guess this is what I talk about with the pinch. So here's my overview. And I finished 7th, but did finish 2nd on battle points. Defeat against the Scions by 7 victory points, and I made a misplay in this game that could have easily swung that game. I would have got 4 and he would have got 4 less on primary, so that was probably my fault. Victory against the Necrons, and the Silent King went YOLO into my tank, and it was close. The tank took like a lot of damage, and he did end up eventually killing the tank, so that was a close game. I suppose I should say the Tempest Scion player just completely ignored the Astraeus. He had so many units, and the Astraeus isn't efficient at killing one-wound models. And then defeat against the Harlequins, 91 to 57. The guy spiked on his 4-up saves like 2 or 3 times. Those Harlequins just getting 4-up across the board are really nasty, with the -1 to hit and the no rerolls. And I couldn't believe how much damage output they have as well. Like they have 95-point units that can just do so much damage. Believe the Void Weavers as well. They're just pure nasty. Harlequins to me feel like a really difficult. It's a bit like playing Drukhari, or it's even a bit like, yeah, Drukhari, I suppose. Like, you know, with the Raider spam and all the units are in the Raiders and they can all shoot out the Raiders. It's kind of the same with the Harlequins. It makes me really frustrated that Impulsor, which is an actually open top model, isn't got the open top rule. But I mean, let me just leave that there. We can discuss that in another video. Alright, what was my game plan in this tournament? I was going to use my Cursor to hold and secure my backfield, probably perform data, raise banners. I was going to get the super heavy tank into a position to give myself as many firing arcs as possible and to cover as many objectives as possible. And one of the things to say about that is, like, if you have a sheet that shows the games before the tournament and shows the maps, then why don't you take 10 minutes a night before your event And like this big box here, this is me trying to figure out where my super heavy is going to be to get firing arcs on how many objectives. I also note down some of the secondaries that I might consider on each of these maps here as well. A little bit of prep can put you in the right stead for winning your event. Now, I was going to use either of the Death Company to put on early pressure with Forlorn Fury. I was going to use the Sanguinary Guard to mop up harder targets and potentially use one squad in reserve to threaten the backfield. The grind them down was going to be a great choice here because I only had 11 units. It was actually 12. I added the servitors later, so 12 units. I was going to put the servitors and the assault intercessors into reserve. This could potentially give me ROD, I guess, or retrieve Nachman data. Now it's not ROD anymore, and it's actually Nephilim data. It's not Nachman data anymore. And objective skewered with OBSEC, because I can charge with the assault intercessors and flip an objective. Like I said, my captain with Rights of War and Soul Warden really was an MVP. He did get popped early in the Tempest Scions game, and that probably hurt me more than I expected. I didn't think he would be able to be killed so easily by like an 80-point unit of Scions. But apparently that can happen. I probably rolled reasonably bad on the save rolls, but still, I even popped Armor Indomitus as well, and he just died from one round of shooting. And then every loss when you only have 12 units is actually going to really hurt you in terms of primaries and other scoring, because you get to a point where like you struggle to hold, like if it's a 6 objective map, you have to have 3 things on objectives, so if you've lost 3 or 4 units, then you've only got a few to push forward. It's tough. It's a balancing act with the super heavy. It's probably why you don't see them at too many events. It's probably why you don't see them win too many events. So Tempest Scions gain, and this is data scry salvage, so diagonal deployments like this, and it's when you hold the ones in the middle, a unit does an action here, and you get up to 3 points at the end of each turn for the ones you hold. Now, the Tempest Scion player had like 3 of these Taurox Prime things, and one, I think this is a Crassus. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. It's a transport that has like 4 heavy bolters on it, and it takes 35 infantry. So everything was in, like, most of it was obscured, and this is him daisy chaining out so he can expunge objectives right at the start of the game. So this was turn 1. So I had nothing really to threaten here, and because if this Tempest Scions list, I think he had about, let's say, 12 squads of Scions, and each squad had like 3 plasma guns in it and a commander, so he can a Voxcaster thing, so he can reroll wands and reroll wounds and bounce orders all over the place. And I think 6 of the squads with plasmas were in deep strike. So in turn 1, I tried to take this objective with a Sanguinary Guard. I put them in the cover, and even though they're in cover, 3 squads of Scions came on here. You know, like in turn 1 I moved out and shot a bunch of stuff. Then 3 squads of Scions came out and wiped out like my 7-man Sanguinary Guard. I mean, they totally overkilled them. It wasn't even close. And then down here, in turn 1, because I had nothing to attack really with the Forlorn Fury, and actually he went first, so I just pushed my Death Company and my captain into this little building. He put like 3 squads of Scions on the board edge here, killed the Death Company even after I paid refusal to die, and killed the captain as well, even after I used Armor Indomitus. So that was huge, right? Like, so I lost 3 units. It was the one turn that I didn't score grind in, I think. So I think that was turn 2 actually, and I did score grind, so I think I must have killed 4, well, I must have killed more than his 3 models, or the 3 units that he killed, but that was a surprising amount of damage from these really cheap Tempest Scion units. The plasmas had exploding 6s, and then after that, I mean, I think my incursors came and took this objective. I had the other Death Company come and take this objective. This was the Death Company with hammers, and then we started moving across the board, and I was systematically killing a lot of his stuff. I guess the super heavy tank isn't efficient against 1 wound models, but I killed his Crassus, his super heavy. I killed all the infantry here. I killed basically all the deep strikers that came in up here. Mephiston actually bounced up from here and killed a commander or one of his characters, and then Mephiston bounced this way, and then eventually, like, he put... I Blade of Sanguinius, one of the characters that was in here, thinking that's like the shortest distance for Mephiston. He jumped him in a transport and drove him like right round here all the way to this objective. It doesn't matter. By the end of the game, Mephiston got all the way over here. He basically went up, across, and down. That's how fast he is. If he flies and he has no denies. We basically got Blade of Sanguinius near the end of the game. It was pretty much the last action of the game. But I mean, I'd lost at that point. The problem, I was trying to think, like, should I have not put the Sanguinary Guard out in turn 1 and try to hold this? Because I also had banners, so I need to get banners up. So, like, basically, he stopped the banner that was on here because he flooded guys out onto the objective and took it away from me. And by killing all my Sanguinary Guard here, he was able to also deep strike a unit within 5. Apparently that's the thing that the Scions can do. So because my Sanguinary Guard were like on the back of this objective, he managed to get like one guy on here. So the second he killed the Sanguinary Guard, I lost my banner there as well, which denied me probably like 2 points as well. So it was a very close game. I did all-spec scan those Scions when they came in, but I didn't do enough damage to deal with them. And I couldn't quite believe that his deep strike, because the squads of Scions are like 80 points. I couldn't believe that each, like, 2 squads of Scions kill the Death Company with refusal to die, then 1 squad of Scions kill the Chapter Master. And it's an 80-point unit. And it you know, it's exposed, like, they're miles away from all the rest of his units. It's not like he maybe, I think up here he had some buffs because he had like a character that was like behind this wall. But down here, it was crazy. So by the end of the game, you can see here the secondary sort of started to turn towards my side. It just was a little bit too late. And I couldn't do the action, unfortunately, in turn 4 either for the 3 points, because the unit that came in down here, the units that came in down here and killed this, started coming in to try and take this off me. And because by this point my heavy tank was up here, I couldn't get line of sight on them behind this, so I basically had to kill them with my incursors that were in the backfield. So yeah, losing Sanguinary Guard, the Death Company, and the Chapter Master early brutalized me. But I felt like, you know, these guys were in cover. The bite couldn't be shot unless those guys died, because, you know, look out, sir. And then these guys were in cover, and also this was -1 to hit these corner pieces, and it didn't help me enough. So I was trying to think what I could have done differently. Maybe I should have like put one of my squads of incursors up here, like this squad of incursors. Maybe they should have started in there. Thing is, if they'd started in there, then his Tauroxes and the other super heavies would have shot them, and they would have done like, you know, those Tauroxes get like 28 shots. They're gonna kill. They're only strength 4 and no AP, but 28 shots means they're gonna kill a few of my incursors. So I think it was right to start the incursors around here, but just, I don't know. I mean, I felt like I needed to get out and needed to put a banner on there. Maybe what I needed to do was start my servitors on the board here and have them just advance onto that turn 1 and hold it. Another problem with this list was like all these Scions are obsec. So by the end of the game, my tank was here, and all I had Mephiston here. I was holding this with incursors. I was holding this with my servitors. I think I was holding this with my incursors. All my Sanguinary Guard were dead. All my Death Company were dead. And he had some stuff still on here hiding behind, and some stuff still on here hiding. But this was clear, and Mephiston was over here, and the super heavy tank was over here as well. So the tank had moved up, and then it also come round. And that was him trying to hide the character. I don't know how I could have beat this with my list. His heavy tank just had 4 heavy bolters on it. I tried to kill it because I felt like he could charge with it. It's got that steel behemoth rule. So I figured like, and at this point, these white and yellow indicators, he had like a squad of Ogrim inside, and maybe like probably a couple of squads of Scions and a character as well. So it was like, I didn't want that just coming into my backfield and messing me up. So I try to kill it. And then I double won the last cannon onto it when it only had 5 wounds left in turn. Like in turn 1, I put a ton of stuff into it. In turn 2, I left it on 5 wounds, and because he'd brought in all the plasmas, I figured the plasmas were the things that were scary. So if I kill all the plasmas, I can win the game. just the plasmas did too much damage to me. 6 squads of plasmas. It's insane to me that 6 squads of plasmas that are like, 480 points can cripple a Marine player in one turn. One turn of shooting, I guess. And I mean, if I didn't have the right units to be able to react and kill them back instantly, and they get another round of firing, then that's huge. So yeah, his Alpha Strike was very difficult to deal with. I played this list before, another GT, and beat it. I think that game was 89, 87. It was slightly different, but I think the second rates for a guard seem crazy now. Like he barely dropped a point here, and he never came into my side of the board. Like, apart from these guys in turn 1, he would never even threaten these objectives. Like, all 3 of the objectives. The guys that came down here, he had one of them reach this objective late in the game, but it didn't matter because I still had 2 guys on it. But like, he never even threatened my side of the board, and he got 43 points on primary. And at the end of the game, I controlled 4, and he was like strung out on 2. It's what it is. Next up, Necrons. And this was a very interesting game. You can see here that the Astraeus has barely even had a chance to move. It's on 7 wounds. What he did was, this was mission number 12, tear down their icons. And because these Eternal Conquerors, again, it was like diagonal deployments. His whole army gets a pre-game move. So pre-game, the Void Dragon moved about here. Turn 1, the Void Dragon, he went first, jumped about here, and then charged the Astraeus. So the Astraeus was on like, it was on like medium bracket, and he's got 2 of these big like laser beam guys shooting as well. So like turn 1, he put it on medium bracket. I mopped up the Void Dragon very quickly. I started my Death Company and Mephiston behind here. I maybe even started my Chapter Master behind here as well. Down here on this bottom one, I believe I had 1 squad of, I think, Incursors in here, and the idea was that they were going to jump out and set up some bombs, because this is the middle of the map, so they're literally right on the middle. So like turn 1, they can get out, set up a bomb. I just didn't come out in turn 1 because I thought I'll use my Astraeus to whittle down the squad of Necron warriors, so when my guys start coming out setting up the bombs, you can see here I did a bomb in turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. They would be very safe once the squad of Necron warriors came out. Over here I started my Death Company and my Sanguinary Guard behind this. I put the Death Company in front because I felt like if there was anything going to threaten me, I'd prefer the Death Company to take the casualties. This is the Death Company with chainswords. The one with Thunderhammers jumped into the middle. You can see there's 1 or 2 hiding behind this building. We killed a bunch of Scorpec, those beastie things, and he had some of the melee guys in there as well, and he's got some of them up here as well. With the, he also had the orb that lets him teleport them, so he brought them into the backfield of my into my backfield, which was interesting actually, considering I scored maximum relentless assault. I also picked assassination here. I almost picked blade, but I went back with assassinate because I figured like he's gonna do, like, I don't know where the Orb of Darkness guy is going. If I pick, I don't really want to be picking a Catan for Blade of Sanguinius. In hindsight, we actually killed the Catan like in turn 1 because we overwatched him with the vehicle and did the maximum 3 wounds, and then were able to pick him off before Living Metal. But that's how it worked. If I'd put my Sanguinary Guard in front, I could have actually probably heroic intervened onto these Scarabs in turn 1 and shut his scoring down even more, because he obviously scored 12. But it's fine. I was pleased enough with this. Him YOLOing the Void Dragon into me was possibly the best thing that could have happened, because if I can do the 3 wounds to him in Overwatch, and then that means I can kill him really easily in my turn, because I can smite him, I can shoot him, I can combat him. You know, if the Overwatch hadn't done any damage, then it would be a bit tricky, because now I'm needing a smite that does all 3 wounds, or he's 100% alive in my side of the table, right? So getting that kill on the Void Dragon, I then did my data. I then there was a big gap here after I dealt with, like, I basically used my super heavy tank at that point because it was pretty badly profiled. It wasn't killing much. I just ended up using it to clean up these Necron warriors, so I had space here to get some units into deep strike, like my servitors, like my assault intercessors, challenge on this objective, and also make sure I'm in multiple units in his deployment zone for relentless assault. These Sanguinary Guard and Death Company actually, I believe the Sanguinary Guard jumped forward, killed these, jumped forward again, got into the backfield. By that point, they'd actually met up with my captain, and we obseced this back objective away from him, and my Death Company with chainsaws just stayed here and held the objective. He had a couple of bombs set up over here that I couldn't defuse with the Death Company, so that was his bombs. I did defuse one of them later in the game, one of my squads of Incursors, which I think the squad of Incursors that were in here, I think they moved up and disabled the bomb that he'd set up here. I think my Tech Marine held this objective by himself. Okay. Yeah, obviously, like, his lasers were able to just shoot right across the board because this thing has 30 wounds and obscuring doesn't matter. So, I mean, he has them peeking out. He technically really didn't need them to be peeking out quite as much, but they were peeking out, and it didn't really matter. By the time he killed the tank, which I think was like turn 3, I was in his face with melee all over the board, and that's kind of the thing with the tank is if they struggle to kill it for a couple of turns, it can let your melee units do all their work. And I've said that before about, like, dreadnoughts. You know, like, if you have a couple of Redemptor dreadnoughts that are completely ignored by your enemy while they're dealing with Sangard or Death Company or whatever, sometimes those two Redemptors can then take over the game and win the game for you. So that's kind of what the super heavy tank did for me in this game. And this was a fun game, and I want to say, I've played Simon before at events. He is such a cool guy to play against. And yeah, I really enjoyed my game against Simon, actually. Okay, and then the final game was against Harlequins. And this was a rough game for me. One being probably... Well, let me start by saying, like, grind them down in turns 4 and 5. We couldn't work it out because we had to end the game quickly and talk through it. So I really think if this game had gone on turns 4 and 5, I'd have definitely scored at least 3 more for grind. And then in Assassinate, again, we had to talk through the final 2 turns. At the end of the game, I believe I could have had, because this squad... We'll come back to that. Let me talk about the game, right? So, like, we're looking at Tides of Conviction, so it's the 6 objective map. It's 2 points if you hold either of those. It's 4 points if you get on your opponent's one, and if you can deny them gaining a command point. Turn 1, I went first. I didn't even move out. I didn't know what to jump the Death Company into. I had Death Company in this corner, I had Death Company in this corner. In hindsight, I should have just probably thrown them into his jet bikes. In my head, I felt scared about that because the jet bikes, I only hit them on 4s because they're -1 to hit. I didn't have Mephiston close to the Death Company, so I couldn't get my exploding 6s. I also can't get rerolls from my Chapter Master, which is apparently a Harlequin thing. So I didn't Furlong Fury the Death Company even though I went first. I think in hindsight I totally should have. I was looking at the points and thinking everything I go after is a down trade. But I think I should have traded them into, like, Thunderhammers are 3 damage a pop. I think I could have killed 1 or 2 jet bikes. My tank killed 4 jet bikes in turn 1. And the jet bikes were the thing, like, those haywire grenades do so much damage against, like, vehicles. So that really fucked me. And you can see these 2 jet bikes, they're still alive. This is, like, turn 2, I think. My Chapter Master was up here with the Sanguinary Guard. They've had to come back all the way to my home field because it's getting overrun by troops. And when I say troops, I mean, like, the troupes that they get, Troupe. I don't really know how to pronounce them, troupes. What the hell are these called? Is it the Star Weavers, the transport things that they get that are full of guys? The jet bikes, he's also got characters here. So the only reason that I'm holding this is because my captain is giving out that Rights of War obsec. You can see here the tank is dead. The tank, he killed the tank in 2 turns, and he went second, and the tank killed 4 of his jet bikes in turn 1. So it just shows, like, how much damage that Harlequin army can do, and that was all in shooting. You never had to melee it. He just killed it in 2 turns of shooting after me shooting away 300 points of his best anti-tank weaponry as well in turn 1. So, I mean, even if I wasn't playing a super heavy tank, I think Harlequins, like, fucking hell, into Blood Angels, that's a really nasty match. So I held this, I held this, I held this. Over here, I don't know if I had a complete whiff, or he was doing behind enemy lines and deadly performance, which basically meant like he had a squad of troop guys here, and they were just a few inches from my table edge. So I was able to use the 1-inch strategic reserve rule to bring my assault intercessors in here on the edge and make like a 4-inch charge or a 5-inch charge. It was super low charge. And then you get 26 attacks with the assault intercessors, and I think I did 2 wounds. I was like, wow. I mean, this is toughness 3 enemies, right? 26 attacks, I did 2 wounds. So I, I mean, maybe my saves on the tank weren't that hot either, but like, it just felt like I fought Harlequins before, and the fusion pistols, the neuro pistols, the haywire grenades, the void weavers, everything just feels like it did so much damage. So over here, I actually surrounded one of his transports with my servitors and my death company, and I was going to blow it up, but naivety on my part meant that like one of the tips of the wings within 3 inches meant that he could get the troops down just outside. I guess I could have. My guy didn't need to be as near the wing as he was. I guess he should have been 0.9 inches away from the wing, because down here, basically, when this transport blew up, there was nowhere for him to put the models down that wouldn't have been engagement range, so it killed the squad inside. So that should have happened up here. At this point, my Sanguinary Guard were up here, so I was kind of, if I'd done that, then I would have had 4, and then I would have been able to jump onto the backfield with this death company, I guess, and try and kill this one character, potentially. But like, based on the fact 26 attacks, did 2 wounds down there, like the 4-up and Van army wide, if he spikes 4-ups, which he did a couple of times, makes it very difficult. I suppose I could have hammered a Wrath with those death company. That would have probably been pretty useful. Obviously, assault intercessors can't hammer a Wrath. And then, yeah, I wonder if it was a misplay here. Like, if I'd known that 26 attacks wouldn't have done, if I'd known 26 attacks had potential of only doing 2 wounds, I would have just maybe used the assault intercessors coming in the backfield, done Nachman data. Then that way, after these guys had mopped up all this, which they did do, they mopped it all up. He had 2 characters and a squad of troop A's over here that I thought, bringing the assault intercessors, kill the troops, expose the characters, then I can go deal with them like with my chapter master or something, or Mephiston, I guess. It just didn't really happen. So at the end of the game, if I'd positioned this better, I could have easily had 3 points for killing the character in that backfield. I could have potentially even denied him some of this primary, because he scored really well on primary, so I could have denied him 4 or something like that easily, and I could have probably sent the Sanguinary Guard this way. So a bit of inexperience playing against Harlequins. Definitely the wrong call to not throw the Death Company Forlorn Fury forward. I position them back behind the assault intercessors, but the Harlequins just move so damn fast. Like, their transports, I forget that the transports can move like, is it 22 inches? And then you can shoot out of them, because they're open-topped. So it just means like the Death Company, and I think in turn 1 there was a transport, or there was something behind this building that was able to shoot like fusion pistols and neuro pistols and all this shit into the Death Company. And I was just like, oh my god, like I just didn't expect that to happen in turn 1. So in hindsight, I think my list could have done better against this, but like the damage that it dishes out, the 4-up army wide, the -1 to hit, these things all like really counter what we're trying to do as Blood Angels. Rerolls from like a chapter master, I think, are so important. Rerolls for Sanguinary Guard or Death Company are so important. We get none of that. -1 to hit is brutally bad for all of us as well, because yeah. And then a 4-up and Van save. It doesn't matter. They're toughness 3. They feel more survivable than I do. They're 55-point troopy models. as well do so much damage, you know? Like, they basically all have 2 Infernal Pistols that always do d6 plus 2 on the 6-inch range as well. So yeah, this was a tough game, a tough pill to swallow here at the end, and I was really annoyed that we didn't get to play the final 2 turns, because I could have had like 10 more points for sure. However, possibly if I'd maybe just done behind enemy lines at this point, I could have. I brought my servitors in up here to knack Mundata. They could have easily just sat in his deployment zone the whole game. He left this corner to throw everything onto this flank, so I could have easily had 10 points for knack Mundata. So I was pleased that I never had a game where I scored really badly. Like 32 points off primary here is decent, I think, in a loss. Especially when I was just getting overrun by OBSEC stuff everywhere and have OBSEC stuff spilling out of transports and stuff like that. I think my chapter master has to stay. I do wonder if I have more experience against Harlequins. I was going to say Dark Elder. It feels like the same army. Dark Elder, Harlequins, I find both those very difficult for Marines to deal with. And yeah, I mean, he's got that. The other thing to say is he had some crazy psychic power that does 6 mortals, or up to 6 mortals, and I don't think he needs line of sight. I tried to deny it. I think both times he cast it, but I think he cast it on like a 10 or 11 or something. And like, man, I wish we had a psychic power that could do 5 or 6 mortals like that. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a tough game. Okay. Positives to take away from this tournament. So more games against armies that I don't typically play against. That's going to help for any event that I go against. If you ever have a question about an army you don't play against, then drop it into a comment on this video or join our Discord down below, and we'll, of course, try your best to answer it. I had another game where a win would have resulted in a high place finish. Yeah, if I'd beaten that guy, I'd probably... Well, I would have come second, right? Because I had 233 battle points. So yeah, if I'd won that game, I would have come second. So it's good to get more games at this sort of higher level in the tournament tables and maybe slowly progress to an eventual... I still haven't finished the tournament second, so maybe a second place or a first place, maybe in the future. And the positive was it's first time taking a super heavy tank to event. You guys know I love super heavies. I sometimes seem like I can make them work. But the main thing is I always have fun with them. Alright, negatives. The losses in my final position, but what I learned is for Fire Support and Blood Angels lists, I think efficiency and reliability are just going to trump everything. I think that we have to figure out what is the most reliable Fire Support against as many different enemies as possible. And I've been trying to do that for like the last year. I think Marines maybe just need... Well, there's rumours again of Codex Space Marine 2.0, so let's see. But yeah, reliability and fire support. I think they're really important to win tournaments as Marines. And I don't think you need as much. Like, you know, a super heavy and a tech Marine is 700 points. I think you can do this with like 300-400 points. I think just getting it efficient and getting it right is the most important thing. Like I said, it was annoying to run out of time in one of the games. Maybe I do need to invest in a chess clock, because I play reasonably fast. When you're running a super heavy tank, your turns are actually very quick, because it's like shooting phase. You just shoot the tank and then you move on, you know? So like maybe I do need to just buy myself a chess clock. Maybe if you ever run into this yourselves, that's something to consider. I still think there's too many things in this meta that just kill 2-wound Marines like a knife through butter. You know, it's not... Sisters definitely do it. Definitely felt like Harlequins did it. Definitely even felt like those Tempest Scions did it. Like the 2-wound... They gave Marines 2 wounds, but every fucking gun or every fucking attack against us is 2 damage, so... You know, what was the point? And then what's next for me? Well, I guess what's next is probably a new list. Death Company with Infernal Pistols, maybe? The Storm Speeder that I've been working on. Finally put some paint on it. And maybe a return of Centurions. Maybe even some Aggressors. I have 6 Aggressors. I have 3 Centurions. Maybe I'll give them a run out. I get 7 or 8 weeks till the next GT. Alright, quite a lot to digest in this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some information. If you did get any value, please hit that like button. It is always super appreciated. It helps YouTube algorithm spread the video to other people, which thank you so much for that. I'll catch you guys next week on the tactics video, and I'll probably be live with a battle report or two next week too, so please stick around and keep an eye out for that. Enjoy your weekend, brothers. Thank you so much. Maybe one day I'll win a Blood Angels event. We'll see. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.